chapel was nearly silent, except for the soft hum of the overhead lights and the quiet shuffle of a lone caretaker adjusting the chairs. Only 3 people sat in the pews, 2 officials in stiff uniforms and an old neighbor who barely knew his name. The flag-draped coffin lay still at the front, waiting for a goodbye that seemed to never come. Then just as the priest cleared his throat to begin, the doors creaked open. Everyone turned. A German shepherd, head low, eyes filled with something deeper than sadness, walked in alone. No leash, no handler. He moved straight toward the casket. What he did next made everyone freeze, and moments later, it would change everything. His name was Michael Harris, a quiet man with tired eyes and shoulders that carried more than just the weight of a backpack. He served 2 tours overseas, but when he came back, he returned to a world that barely noticed him. No family waiting at the airport, no fanfare, just silence. Michael had grown up in a small town, the kind where people wave but don't really know each other. He wasn't popular, not particularly loud or flashy, but when 9/11 happened, he signed up without hesitation. He believed in something bigger than himself. That belief would cost him more than he ever imagined. After returning from service, Michael struggled. The nightmares never stopped. He found it hard to sleep, to trust, to feel. Jobs came and went. So did people. Eventually, he stopped trying to explain the war to those who had never seen it. He rented a small 1-bedroom house on the edge of town, far from noise, far from judgment. He didn't go out much, didn't talk much. But if you asked the few who noticed him, they'd say one thing: he was always with his dog. Wherever Michael went, that German shepherd was by his side, always watching, always waiting. Michael met Shadow, a scruffy, half-starved German shepherd, on a rainy afternoon behind a gas station. The dog was curled beneath a dumpster, shivering, ribs showing. Most people passed him by, but not Michael. Maybe he saw something familiar in that dog's eyes. Maybe broken souls recognize each other. He brought Shadow home, fed him, cleaned his wounds, and laid a blanket beside his own bed. That night, for the first time in months, Michael slept without waking up screaming. Shadow didn't just fill the silence in Michael's home, he filled the silence in his heart. They became inseparable. Whether it was a walk through the woods, a trip to the store, or simply sitting in silence on the porch, Shadow was always there, loyal, watchful, quiet, just like Michael. Shadow knew when the nightmares were coming. He'd nudge Michael awake gently or curl up against him until the shaking stopped. On bad days when Michael couldn't leave the house, Shadow would simply sit with him, never judging, never leaving. To outsiders, it may have looked like a man and his dog, but to Michael, Shadow was family, the only one who truly stayed, who truly understood, his protector, his friend, his last connection to hope. It happened quietly, just like Michael lived. One cold morning, a neighbor noticed his porch light still glowing after sunrise, something Michael never forgot to turn off. Hours passed. The mailbox remained full. The curtains never shifted. When the authorities entered his home, they found Michael sitting peacefully in his old recliner, Shadow curled up at his feet. A half-read book lay on the table beside him, and a faint smile still rested on his face. Doctors said it was likely his heart, worn down from years of silent battles. Shadow didn't bark. He didn't move. He just stayed there, eyes fixed on Michael, as if waiting for him to wake up. When they tried to take Michael away, Shadow resisted. It took gentle words and quiet patience to coax him out the door. The news barely made a ripple. No next of kin could be found. No one stepped forward to claim him. Just a few official forms, a date set for a simple military burial, and a quiet sigh from those who handled it. Another forgotten soldier. But Shadow didn't forget. He waited by the door each day until the day of the funeral came. The morning of the funeral was gray, the sky heavy with clouds that threatened rain but never delivered. A small military cemetery sat quiet at the edge of town, its rows of headstones lined in perfect symmetry, each one a name, a story, a sacrifice. At the far end, under a faded green canopy, Michael's casket rested. An American flag lay neatly across the wood. A lone bugler stood off to the side, warming his breath against the cold metal. Only 3 chairs were filled. A representative from the VA, the local pastor, and Mrs. Langley, an elderly neighbor who remembered Michael from the grocery store. No friends, no family, no unit brothers. The chaplain cleared his throat, glancing around the empty space. It felt wrong, so quiet, so hollow, for a man who had once risked everything. Just as he was about to speak, the stillness was broken by the soft sound of paws approaching on the gravel path. All eyes turned as Shadow appeared at the edge of the cemetery, walking slowly and deliberately down the path. There was no leash, no one guiding him, just the quiet sound of his paws pressing into the gravel, steady and sure, as if he had done this 100 times in his mind before. He walked past the rows of headstones, never looking left or right. His eyes were locked ahead, on the flag-draped casket. When he reached it, Shadow paused. He looked up, his ears twitching slightly. Then with a soft whimper, he placed both front paws gently against the wood and pressed his head to it. He stayed like that, for seconds that felt like hours. The pastor's lips trembled. Mrs. Langley wiped her eyes. Even the bugler lowered his horn. Shadow then laid down beside the casket, resting his head against it, just like he used to by Michael's feet at home. He didn't move. He didn't bark. He just stayed. A young soldier attending the ceremony discreetly took out his phone and began recording. The moment was too raw, too powerful to ignore. What happened next would ripple far beyond that quiet cemetery. Within hours, the video spread across social media. Millions watched as this loyal dog refused to say goodbye. Shadow didn't just attend the funeral, he gave Michael the farewell no one else had. And in doing so, he would make sure the world finally saw the man they had forgotten. By nightfall, the video had already reached 100,000 views. By morning, it had crossed 1 million. People from all walks of life, veterans, dog lovers, complete strangers, were sharing it with captions like, "This broke me, and we cannot let this man be forgotten." News outlets picked it up. Morning shows ran the footage. Even major networks reached out, wanting to know more about the mysterious soldier and his grieving companion. Journalists began digging into Michael's life. They discovered his quiet heroism, 2 tours, multiple commendations, and a voluntary rescue mission that saved fellow soldiers during an ambush. All of it left out of any official obituary. People were stunned. How could a man who gave so much receive so little? Donations began pouring in, not just for funeral costs, but for Shadow's care. Messages came from fellow veterans who said Michael's story reminded them of their own silent battles. Soon, city officials organized a memorial. The small cemetery that had once been nearly empty now overflowed with people, candles, flowers, and American flags. And at the center of it all was Shadow, his quiet vigil turning into a symbol of loyalty, sacrifice, and love that the world couldn't ignore. 2 weeks later, the cemetery looked nothing like it did that lonely morning. Rows of cars lined the gravel road. Strangers stood shoulder to shoulder, veterans in uniform, families with children, bikers from a local vet support group. They had all come for Michael Harris. A full military ceremony was arranged, complete with a 21-gun salute, a folded flag presentation, and the names of his service brothers read aloud. This time, Michael wasn't alone. This time, the world showed up. People spoke about him, not just as a soldier, but as a man who lived quietly and gave deeply. His story inspired conversations across the country about forgotten heroes and the quiet wounds of war. A bronze plaque was installed near his grave, reading, "Staff Sergeant Michael Harris, beloved soldier, forgotten no more." And beside it, a smaller marker for Shadow, loyal until the end. Shadow was officially adopted by a fellow veteran who had also served overseas. They said Shadow still visits the grave every week, sitting quietly beside it just like he did that day. In honoring Michael, the community found something they didn't expect: hope, unity, and the reminder that sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones almost left untold. In a world that often forgets the quiet ones, Michael Harris and Shadow reminded us all of something timeless: that love, loyalty, and sacrifice don't always come with applause. Sometimes they arrive in silence and stay until the very end. One man, one dog, and a bond that refused to be buried. Michael may have left this world quietly, but because of Shadow, he did not leave it unnoticed. And maybe that's the lesson, that even in our loneliest moments, one loyal heart, one true companion, can echo louder than 1,000 voices. He wasn't forgotten. He was finally seen.